Take 3. Yeah. Hi guys. Today, I'm here to talk about something. It's called Final Fantasy IV. This is July 19th, 2021. 30 years ago today, Final Fantasy II debuted on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The only thing about that is Final Fantasy II on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was actually, in Japan, Final Fantasy IV. You see, we got Final Fantasy I on the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. We didn't get 2 and 3, which were also on the Nintendo Entertainment System. After Final Fantasy IV, which was dubbed 2 here, we didn't get Final Fantasy V, but we did get a Final Fantasy III, which was actually Final Fantasy VI. And after 6, there's no problem with the numbers at all. Because 7 debuted on the PlayStation, and then we got access to all those old ones we didn't get access to originally on the PlayStation. And I'm here to talk about not those games. I'm here to talk about Final Fantasy IV. And why, even though there's people that think Final Fantasy VI is the best of all time, they think other games are the best of all time, 4 barely gets any recognition, why 4 has pretty much the most remakes, the most reissues, and why people talk about it so reverently in terms of modern gaming. And there are 3 big takeaways for that. I'm going to go over all 3. It's not going to be a very long video, but it is a celebration of this game and why it is so important, not just to the Final Fantasy franchise, but to the game industry as a whole. And Square Enix deserves a lot. Back then it was Squaresoft. They deserve a lot of credit for what the industry is like nowadays. And I'm not talking about microtransactions or anything like that. I'm talking about these 3 bullet points that I'm about to go over. One is a pretty big one. It's utilization of the in-game engine to do a cutscene. No fancy CGI, no improved graphics, no nothing. This is the first game I actually sat down and played. I'm playing there with my controller, and all of a sudden, I lose control of the character. And the character just goes off and does their own thing. I'm like, what? It's called a story beat. I hit a story beat in the thing. I was like going, I'd never seen that happen before. Now, Final Fantasy franchise is known for doing that. Not one you just stand and talk. That's really not what this is. It's your character will move of its own volition away from your controller. And that is actually kind of cool. It's a pre-programmed sequence that you hit. And it's really cool. And it uses the in-game engine to actually do that. So it doesn't shift to another animation style or anything. It just uses the same engine. The remake that you see me playing on the channel does the same thing. And what you should be seeing in the background is the Damsian episode that I just did is going to be running with this part of the whole thing. And that whole engine, that whole scene right there is done with the in-game engine. And they intentionally made sure whatever engine they did with the remake was also what was being used to do the cutscenes. So the same sense of, I just lost control of my character, what the heck is going on? But today we take that for granted. It happens all the time in modern games. But back then, it didn't. On the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, that did not happen. I mean, sure, you get little things like Toad talking and Super Mario Brothers and whatnot, but again, those are stagnant or just hopping up and down. I'm talking actual character movement where they move around the screen and they go from here to there, and you just lose total control for a few moments, and then you pick up right where the character stopped, and you're like, wait, this wasn't where I wanted to go. This is pretty freaking awesome. So back in the day, it was revolutionary. Today, we take it for granted. And literally, Final Fantasy IV is the one that really ushered that in and made people go, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And that's why 4, not 6, is on a lot of old school gamers like myself's top 10 lists. And there's going to be people who have 6 in there, but 6 owes everything it did to Final Fantasy IV and what it did first. Which brings me to my second thing I want to talk about. And I can't, and I know I have YouTube music playing, YouTube catalog music playing with this video. You can't play the music here because, as much as I'd like to, I strongly encourage you to go look online and listen to it on Spotify or whatnot, where you can listen to Square Enix Final Fantasy music. But yeah, Final Fantasy music has always been pretty good. 1, 2, and 3 on the NES, they were limited. But when you hit Super Nintendo, man, the music just... If you go listen to the soundtrack for 4, which is all done with programming and not instruments and whatnot, you will just be in awe of what they were able to accomplish. Nobuo Uematsu, oh my god, he's a genius. He's a genius. And he's the John Williams, in my opinion, the John Williams of the video game industry. The guy can do no wrong. And I love everything he's ever done. But Square Enix, even though Nintendo had some memorable tunes, Square Enix made a whole, like, opera worth of music for a video game and crammed it onto a Super Nintendo cartridge. That's nuts. It's just insane to think about how much music, and the music plays continuously throughout the whole game. They determined early on that music would be part of the storytelling mechanic for Final Fantasy franchise, and it is. Even if you're playing 14 nowadays, the MMO, that music is constantly there in your ear, and you don't get annoyed by it. You just take it for granted that it's going to be there. Not every game franchise has that. They don't. But a lot of game franchises, all these games that have come out since, they kind of owe Nobuo a lot of credit for making it cool to make music for video games, because there's so much out there now, and we take it for granted that, hey, that game had some great music, I want to go get that. And in fact, it propelled music from video games to the point where they're not getting Grammy nominations for music in video games. Journey was the first, and that is an extreme compliment. And it all harkens back to the work that Square Enix was doing, and the work that Nintendo was kind of doing in the background. They were doing stuff, because if you go to Link to the Past, that has some great freaking music in it as well. And holy crud, it is just a testament to, I have every single Final Fantasy soundtrack, even 8, even though I didn't really like 8 that much. I still like the music in it. And you can listen to Final Fantasy music for like 3 days and not get any repeats. It's ridiculous how much music is in that franchise. It is, especially once 14 hit. 14 has so much music behind it. It's incredible. And some of my favorite music to be overshadowed by Final Fantasy 4. And my last point is story. Writing. Before Final Fantasy 4, it was move the character here, do this. Move the character there, do that. Yes, you got some dialogue and whatnot, but plot was secondary to the gameplay. Final Fantasy 4 made it cool to tell a really engrossing story and get you invested. And by God, I got invested. I was like, I gotta see how this ends. I gotta know how this ends. We gotta get to the end. Gotta beat up the boss. I did everything in my power to see that closing cutscene. And that closing cutscene, I was like, oh, this is a long freaking cutscene. It's not long in the terms of Final Fantasy VI, but it's still at the time, that was a long cutscene. I think it's like 15 minutes long, but Final Fantasy VI is 40 minutes, just so you know. It's something that a lot of people say, oh, well, Final Fantasy VI did it for... No, it didn't. 4 did the storytelling stuff first. I mean, 6 has a great story. I don't like the villain in 6. I don't like Kefka at all. I thought he was just a Final Fantasy version of the Joker. No offense to Square Enix or Squaresoft at the time, but I really didn't like Kefka that much. I still don't like Kefka that much. It's just personal preference. I love the story of Final Fantasy VI. It's one of my favorite Final Fantasies. But 4 did everything first, and everybody harkens back to 6 and go, well, 6 did this, 6 did that, but 4 did it first, and 4 did a lot. There's a lot of music that's reused in 6 that came from 4, and I saw somebody reacting to the new benchmark thing for Final Fantasy 14, and there's music from Final Fantasy 4 in there, and they're going, oh, that's music from 6. It wasn't 6, but it was in 4 first. I hate to tell you that. It was in 4 first. You take stuff for granted. It's not that not everything was in 4 first. I mean, Chocobos were in 2. The Prelude and the Victory theme were both in 1. But there was a lot that went into 4 that slowly made people in the industry go, oh crud, they did this, can we do that? And that's why we say the video game industry builds upon itself. And Square Enix it deserves a lot of the credit for the industry's building upon itself, because a lot of people have imitated what Square Enix has done and actually taken away and improved upon it. But Square Enix has always been the ones to sit there and go, well, we did it first and we still do it cool. And they do. There's some great things out there. Final Fantasy 14, in my opinion, is a better MMO than World of Warcraft. And it's showing right now. And that story in 14 is just, it's wonderful. Anyway, guys, this has been me doing a little bit of a kind of a celebration. Today is a very important day for me, because I don't think I'll be around for the 35th anniversary of Final Fantasy IV, but I am here for the 30th, and I love it. I am here to celebrate all day long. I won't be streaming the game. I'm just going to be talking about it on Twitter, on my Discord, and whatnot. So keep an eye out for that, because it's going to air around 9:30 my time, which Pacific time, that's around 7:30 a.m. Anyway, yeah, it's Final Fantasy IV. When the Repixel comes out, which is the SNES version, but remastered for modern PCs and consoles, I highly recommend pick up 4 and take a look at the game that literally helped revolutionize the video game industry. And with that, I will see you guys in the near future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.